What an fascinating aspect of D-mannose, which researchers help bring to light. Now, often when we think of, for example, anti-aging, age reversal, mitigating the impact of aging, we often think skin, hair, muscle, metabolism, and so on and so forth. Or I should say not as often, do we think the internal systems. In this case, per se, the bladder. Now, also, too, in the same light, when we think of D-mannose, we think biofilm, potentially an antibacterial impact, so on and so forth. We don't necessarily think of autophagy. And think of it this way. When cellular debris builds up, let's say, for example, you have like a bunch of old cars in the neighborhood, and they're sitting in people's driveways, and all of a sudden those old cars that don't run make it into the road, D-mannose helps clear that up in an indirect way. So without further ado, let's get right into the study itself, and hopefully we elucidate how D-mannose may actually turn out to be a very, very powerful euthing supplement on the internal side, and also help mitigate the UTIs in a very interesting way. To proceed as follows, D-mannose reduces age-triggered changes in urinary tract that increases susceptibility to UTIs. The researchers investigated a process called autophagy. For those which are more in-depth, you may think quercetin and things along those lines. Well, enter D-mannose. That all cells naturally use to clean up old or defective cellular materials by digesting and recycling them into structures called lysosomes. Quote, we found that the recycling process naturally slows down as uroepithelial cells age. Uroepithelial cells age. Quoting, older cells accumulate larger lysosomes that are less effective at degrading cellular materials, which leads to their toxic accumulation inside the cell. Again, those old cars making it from the driveway into the road. To proceed, aged uroepithelial cells also accumulate more damaging reactive oxygen species, ROS, than younger tissues. ROS are molecules that can harm tissues, and a redox response that normally neutralizes ROS in younger cells. Consequently, an inflammatory process builds up, quoting, leading to cell death. Dead uroepithelial cells leave their location, exfoliating the bladder and disrupting its integrity. Those old cars make it from the driveway into the road, which further exacerbates age-related dysfunction. Importantly, they also discovered that treating aged mice in an animal study with D-mannose, a natural sugar, restores autophagy, it mitigates those reactive oxygen species and uroepithelial cell shedding, suggesting that mannose supplementation could counter age-associated human uroepithelial dysfunction. Now we're going to go to the abstract. A little bit more detail, but it's important to cover just the same. Finally, quoting once again, we discovered that treatment with D-mannose, a natural bioactive monosaccharide, rescues autophagy flux, reverses the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, mitigates ROS and LRP. Please excuse me, so I'm moving a little fast. GasderminD, interleukin, B-driven, beta, pyroptotic, epithelial cell shedding in aged mice. Collectively, our results demonstrate that normal aging affects bladder physiology, with aging alone increasing baseline cellular stress, susceptibility to infection, and suggest that mannose supplementation could serve as a synotherapeutic to counter age-associated uroepithelial dysfunction. Pretty interesting. Again, D-mannose, helping clean things up and helping those cells restore normal function, basically recycling old debris. To proceed, the public study. Collectively, quoting, as always, our results demonstrate that normal aging affects bladder physiology, with aging alone increasing baseline cellular stress and susceptibility to infection. So those individuals who have found hard time treating UTI as time goes on, they may think, for example, maybe they're more prone to bacteria, maybe they're more prone to something else, and that may be true. Or it could be the cells having a hard time dealing with debris, leaving an individual more susceptible to UTIs over time. Quoting, we suggest that mannose supplementation could counter age-associated uroepithelial dysfunction in addition to limiting recurring urinary tract infections, i.e. UTIs. And I'm going to leave this graphic up for a second, which it's in the research. It kind of looks like a bad Tetris game or good player, not so good player, but you get the picture as far as basically autophagy, and also too some of the effects of the inability to clear out or recycle that defective material that tends to build up over time as a person goes through time, per se. But again, fascinating research. Now we have a whole new dimension to D-mannose outside of just looking at it from something that may inhibit biofilms or have a mild antibacterial effect without interjecting publisher bias, but actually potentially as an anti-aging substance, or mitigate the effect of aging to be grammatically correct, right before us. So again, without interjecting too much publisher bias, so if a person, for example, is finding themselves prone to UTIs, work with a medical professional. A possible tool in help alleviating or mitigate that damaging impact may be with supplementation of D-mannose, helping restore that recycling process of the bladder and autophagy, and helping bring things back to the way they were at an earlier period in time. Again, gratitude to the researchers. I am humbled you watch and look forward to see what you and I both share next week. Catch you all next time. See you then. Bye.